we didn't, so these are diamond blades. They go on a grinder. So ask me how many grinders do I have?
Mark, how many grinders do you have?
Maybe you should ask me how many work. No.
Let me narrow it. How many do you have plugged in at one time?
If you count die grinders, about 14. And then, so Mark, do you trip over the cords? Yes,
Mark.
I do.
Mark, have you ever hurt yourself with all of this?
Oh, we haven't gotten to that, have we? So it wasn't, so the story, and I said, so my beard used to be down to here. So when was that?
2 months ago, maybe?
No, September? I think so. So in September, people were coming over to look at my studio and all that. So anyway, I was cleaning up, and I had a pipe there that I wanted to move because I had to move. So we had a trench that went underneath some of the granite that we had laid, and it sunk. So I wanted to fill it in. So I was cutting this pipe where I could roll the granite back, fill it thing, and roll it back in. So I was cutting it. I was using a grinding thing, and I went back. It kicked back on me and grabbed my beard and twisted it around, and I grabbed it close to my chest. After it bounced off it a couple times, unplugged it, and then I had the grinder in my hand, the shoes on the tractor. I walked out.
I'm driving across the pasture on the tractor, and Mark is coming like he's holding a baby, right? I'm like, what is he doing? And he gets closer, and yeah, he had like 2 little strings of long hair on each side, and then all the middle, but he was cut from like his breastbone up under his chin, and I thought, well, there go the tiki mugs. So Mark, what's the earliest art piece that you can recall?
Well, a finished piece.
Finished piece.
So this is what I did in 1972, right after.
So, hi everybody. Thank you for coming. Mark has an interviewer today because when we stood together 25 years and 3 or 4 months ago to get married, I had written my vows and it was Mark's turn, and he was kind of weaving back and forth because he and his brother May have imbibed before the ceremony. And I said, "Did you do your vows?" He goes, "I was gonna
wing it."
Okay. At least he would wing it. So rather than have him wing it, which could be somewhat alarming, we have some questions prepared, but please, as we go along, please feel free to interrupt, ask questions, make up stuff, shout out, whatever. Interpretive dance is also appreciated. Are we ready?
We're ready.
Okay. Mr. Robinson.
Yes, ma'am.
Give us some general information about you that doesn't have to do with how you've hurt yourself today, how many Band-Aids you've used in the last week.
That's pretty hard to do.
I know.
So I was born.
That's good. As opposed to hatched.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in a couple of weeks, I'll be 70 years old.
Aw.
Yeah. Which isn't old to a lot of people. So is what they tell me.
What else?
So I've been exposed to art all my life. My grandmother was a professional artist. She had an art shop in Oakland, California, and my dad was worked for the city of Oakland in the tree division, so he was a tree surgeon, what we always called him. And so he introduced me to wood carving and to chainsaws, and I still have all my fingers. So a few cuts. And so that was inspired me and just having talent that I discovered that I had. What else?
Shall I start your questions now?
Sure.
Okay. So Mark, what's your very first memory of art in your world?
Probably watching my grandmother trying to paint in her shop in Oakland and smelling the linseed oil. So every time I smell linseed oil, I think of that.
Okay.
Well, I just remember it was a storefront behind their house or in front of her house, and it was just, there was the window displays.
Okay.
And a lot of oil paintings all around that she had done previously, but she mostly sold China paintings.
Okay. So you remember that, but how did you personally start doing art?
started doodling or started drawing. Oh, I could draw that, or try to draw things. And so I drew early on. I drew cartoons that I saw. I drew the rat fink, you know, which,
Classic.
classic. And I still,
Michelangelo's rat fink.
yeah, I did draw on a book report or something on Michelangelo, his picture of Moses with the horns. So, and I had a response from my teacher said, "That's a good drawing."
What do I know? Okay, so kind of same question. When's the first time somebody went, "Oh my gosh, look at that, Mark! What a great job!" Or, "Ooh, I want that!" Or
Last night.
what?
All my life.
Really?
I'm not really sure.
All right.
How to answer that one.
You would not believe we practiced this, but that's okay. So tell me this one, and
Yeah.
I think you might even have an answer. What's been the hardest part about creating art over your lifetime?
Having to work.
Aw,
Yeah, I know.
poor thing.
And not just on the art, but having to learn a living.
Having to earn a living?
Or pay for my food. Yeah, and rent. But I think most artists experience that, you know.
Having to pay for their rent? You didn't just like...
Yeah, you know, it's not like everybody gets to marry the woman of their dreams that buys things for them now, like I have now. But I had to...
Can you hear my eyes rolling to the back of my head? Okay.
I've done a lot of different things. And sometimes I get overwhelmed, so I just don't do anything for a while. But now, you know, granite, there's a lot of granite around, and I have to figure that out. So
why do this? Why not driving a fast car or whatever the case may be? Whatever people do that just drive them, what do you get from this? Pride?
Pride.
Okay.
You know.
Satisfaction?
Satisfaction. I love it when people go, wow.
Okay.
You know.
Well, now we know what to say to him.
Yeah, just go, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But,
all right.
You know.
So you create so people will say wow to you.
And for you to go wow too.
Oh, for me too. Number 47. That's okay. All right. So in addition to that, you have this show here and you planned it for a whole year, right?
Year and a half.
A year and a half. It's been a minute. Why a retrospective show? Why 50 odd years worth of stuff?
Because I had the stuff.
Because you had the stuff. So, and I will share this with you. I've seen stuff that he pulled out and framed. I've been married to the man more than 25 years. Never had an idea that he had 4 self-portraits or a bunch of naked women, or I'm sorry, elegant and tasteful nudes. All of those things.
Those all came out of a drawing book.
Okay.
So I had pages of a drawing book, and I guess you just never wanted to look at my drawing books.
I never
asked you to come up and see my etchings again.
The very first time I went to your house, even though you may not remember this, you sat me down and showed me some drawing books and artwork and things. So yeah,
You just don't remember them.
I don't remember them.
Oh.
I was probably so taken with your impressiveness that the artwork was simply secondary. How'd I do? Okay, so if you could tell us, what's a common question that you get asked about your art?
Well, nowadays is how'd you do that? How do you cut that stone?
Fair enough.
How do you whittle away all the stuff you don't want on there? And I usually just say diamond grinders.
Some of you may have heard that answer. Okay. What else? What other sorts of things do they ask you if it's not about your stonework, for example? If it's about paintings or drawings, what's a common question? I heard some last night.
Go ahead.
Shall I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Like, why so many different kinds of things? You don't seem to have a single style.
Yeah.
And that's the answer. Yeah, you're right.
Because I like a lot of different things.
Okay, fair enough.
So the whole process from proposal and all that is about 2 years. And when we're doing the proposal, we thought we could finish them in a year, and that didn't happen. So they were getting anxious towards the end. And there's a story. Do we tell it now?
Which one, dear?
So a year into the process, they called Ampelio and asked them, hey, can you curve granite after it's already been started? So because they had curved their bridge, the thing. So this bridge is already built, and then they had to re-put it out for another bid, and they were going to use ceramics. So they found me another bridge, but they haven't built it yet. So we delivered them in November, and try that I might. I was trying to get all good pictures that they would, because I envisioned them going on these canvases, but they're not as, they don't look as good as the stones themselves. So we'll leave it at that. But so in a couple of years, hopefully we'll be finished with this bridge, and we'll all gather at the bridge.
Yeah. It is somewhere east of Porterville, that kind of up in the
somewhere
mountains by Hot Springs.
The only thing I know, it's on M46, which is Mountain Road 46, which is Pine Flat Road near Springville or Porterville. So I'm not sure. The animals and the flora is from that area.
So the bridge, the canvases that you see here, the bridge work, that took a while. And I saw you work harder in your head about that than I have in anything else you've ever done. Tell me about that challenge.
So like on the tikis and stuff, I could do them, because they don't, I know what they're supposed to look like. You don't. But the flowers and the bears and the bobcat, you know what they look like. And so now I have to make stone look like that. So it was a process, and sometimes I could only work on it 20 minutes a day or so, and it would go, okay, I'm to a point where I don't know where I'm going right this minute, so I have to come back and figure out where I'm going, and so I have to keep, so like on the faces and stuff, I had to keep taking them down and get that shape before I could even put any detail in, and so it was a very hard process, and it was a kind of like perfectionist syndrome, or where you get locked up trying to do things perfect, and then you just have to realize, well, it's not going to be perfect. You just have to make it the best you can. So it was. Let me talk to you a little bit about that. So the bear is all smooth, right? I'm going, well, I got to make it look kind of like fur. So how am I going to do that? So I had to figure it out, and I just took the edge of a cylinder diamond piece, so like that, and I just used the edge and just did little nicks on it, and I once had an art teacher tell me, if one line is good, 1,000 is better. So I've always remembered that. So that's kind of just what I did, and then the eyes, you just start working them in, and they start, wow, did I make a mistake, or no, it looks good. So that's basically the process, that it just comes from keep working on it. I took art classes mostly because I went to college to do athletics. So I did football, wrestling, and track in high school. I went to junior college. I did track and football. And then I went to Stanislaus State, and I did just track. So I did take art classes all that time. And I once had an art teacher at Stanislaus said, Mark, if we gave scholarships for art, you wouldn't get it because you're too lazy. And I took that as a compliment, but I don't think he meant it as a compliment. And being lazy is that I just didn't do enough art, because I was doing at the time track and field. So I went to Stanislaus in '78 for 3 months, made All-American in the hammer, took a year off, came back, and made All-American again, and did more art classes. But I never graduated anything besides high school. But I don't think it matters either. And then that led me to going into while I was at Chabot in Hayward, I started working at a t-shirt shop, doing t-shirts and stuff. So and doing the art for that. And so I worked there for a year, and then that's when I was throwing on the weekend, and then Stanislaus recruited me to go join the track team. So I transferred over, went over there, did a little bit of artwork, freelance, sent it back and forth through the mail for the t-shirts. And so then I did that, and then I took the year off, and I went back to that same t-shirt shop and worked there in Hayward for the rest of the year. And then I went back to school and did a full 2 semesters and worked out and all that. And then after that, my coach and I got together and got a couple other people, and we started a t-shirt company. And so I did that with different investors and different owners and different partners for almost 20 years. And then my wife rescued me and brought me down to the valley, or well, I was in the valley, but brought me down to the Exeter area, where I could see the mountains, and we could go into that part.
I don't know what that part is. It's not on my list.
So then I needed a job. So I worked around the house because we had enough stuff to do for a year and a half, and then we had to pay an aunt off to some property, so I needed a job. And so I looked in the paper, and there was an ad for the monument shop in town, Visalia Granite. And so I started working there. I didn't do a lot of art there, but I used art in terms of making things better and picking things and stuff like that. I did the layouts after they did them on the computer and made them correct and all that, and to sandblast. So I learned how to sandblast. I learned how to go to cemeteries and lay out in the cemetery, and we put
and by layout, you mean lay out things on headstones,
not just lay out in the sun. No, sometimes it's wet. So, but put final dates on cemetery things. So that was a couple of years, and then in 2006, my boss and I went to Georgia, to Elberton, Georgia, and we took a class in making things out of broken granite that you could resell, basically. So I took it as an art experience, and I carved some hands that's similar to the thing, and later made a sundial out of it. And so carving granite is much different than carving soapstone. So we first learned how to do hammer and chisel. And so my boss bought some hammers and chisels and all that. And so I'm doing that. I'm making things round and trying things. And then where the class was over at a monument shop, or a supplier shop, and a couple blocks later was a tool supplier. So we went over there and we bought a bunch of grinders, or a couple of grinders and some diamond blades. And then I went to town and I carved this face out of a piece of granite, and everybody liked it. And they go, so that was my start of my stone carving career.
Is that the first year you sent things home from Georgia?
No, I didn't send. Yeah, I sent that piece home. I sent those 2 pieces home.
Okay.
But I didn't send anything extra that year.
Ever after, Mark would be gone for 5-7 days something. And he's like, okay, I'm having some stones sent home. Okay. In my head, stones are like the size that you find at Red Lobster in the landscaping, right? So one year he sent me pictures, and it's this tiki that's 6 feet tall?
6'8".
It's huge. And so he goes, and they had blanks, and I'm getting those too.
So I have these 2 blanks, and they're kind of curved like this. So these are all waste pieces that were cut out of something else. So all these besides the one in the middle, were all these round, similar to the Viking, that had a split down the back where they put a wire saw in it and cut around the circle to use the outside part to put over a pipe for some type of construction, some type of thing that they did. So when the first year after 2010, I went back when they changed it. It was Rock Camp originally, then it turned into School of Hard Rocks. Just different people sponsoring it. So I went there and they had this round piece there, and one of the guys that was running it goes, "Hey, I saved this piece for you." And so I made a tiki out of the granite, and that one's at home too. And I won Best of Show on that. And that there's a hammer in there that says School of Hard Rocks, and it says 2010, I think, and that was the Best of Show hammer. So on my first trip to Georgia, I used to wear a hammer throwing shirt for Highland Games, so Brotherhood of the Hammer. And so somehow I got the name The Hammer. And so every time I go back to Georgia, I'm called The Hammer.
I went with Mark to the School of Hard Rocks in South Dakota, where I was promptly named Mrs. Hammer. So happy about that, let me tell you, so happy.
Yeah.
So you've talked about little kid doing sketches and working in a t-shirt shop, and you've done art. Some people have mentioned they recognize you from the October Taste of the Art or Taste of Visalia, the art show.
Yeah.
Here, what do you think is the toughest kind of art for you to do? Was it getting started and learning technique? Is it like selling to strangers on the street corner?
No, I like talking to everybody about my art, so that's good. Well, my hardest project is obviously the bridge project.
Would you take another project like that where you had to, like, people knew what you were making and they expected it to look a certain way?
I don't want to.
Okay. Okay. So if you don't want to necessarily do that kind of thing, have you set for yourself other goals? Because one of your goals that we had talked about is you wanted to have a public art installation. And now you will have a bridge somewhere with your work.
Right.
So what else is on your bucket
Well,
list of things?
eventually, maybe the big pieces will end up in some type of public art thing where we donate them, because if I'm gone, you don't want them around.
So the question was, how do you start? Because for me, I'm honestly curious about that. I am not a creative person. I'm an appreciative person. I can go, oh, wow.
No, she paints rocks and little things that are really cool, and then she throws them away. And I pull them out of the garbage and hide them. And then sometimes she'll when we went to first Saturday in Three Rivers, she placed them in different places.
Nina, weren't you there? Yeah.
Nina went with us. And so, but she says she's not a creative person.
But there's that moment between, like, how do you take that first creative step? You have a rock and you go, and in this case, ladies and gentlemen, oh, look, a piece of stone, and it's 7 feet long, and it's 2.5 feet wide, and it's 1.5 feet thick, and it weighs 900 pounds. I'm going to make what is that step? Because that's the step I don't get.
Okay. So some people say they see things in the rock. I don't. I put something in the rock. So then I had it at Rock Camp. He told everybody, you could see something in there, but if you're Mark, you could just make it into whatever you want. And that's true. You could cut away. You just cut away things that you don't want, and that's a very simple answer. And you could also say that you cut everything away that isn't a tiki, or everything that isn't a black bear, but it's not that simple. You know that. No, but sometimes. So some of the best things is that you break things, and you have to either glue them back together, or you just. So on the sculpture in there of the two hands that I did, the soapstone, if you notice this little finger goes now under like that, because I broke off that finger. And this is 40-something years ago, and I still remember it. Yeah. So, and then other things that, just like she says, well, nobody's going to know what you meant to do, so just do it. And then the Viking, if you look at it, there's a crack right here. I knocked out that whole piece off, and I glued it back together, And then I was working on, and I'm working on a big fish that's going to be similar to that, but 6 inches thing and like 24 by 24. And I was cutting, trying to get the mouth open, and I broke the whole jaw off. So I'm going, well, I'm not going to get this done for the show. So I went to other things, and I'll get back to it, and I'll figure out, I'll pin it and glue it, and you won't notice.
And to your credit, I was in the house and he comes in and he goes, well, I broke the fish. I mean, there's no emotional investment in it. He's in the middle of doing something, so he'll be changing direction. It's not an end point for him. I would have just been devastated and thrown the whole thing and had quite a moment. He was like, I'll fix it later.
Well, and as I'm working on things, sometimes I go, I could break this. It occurs to you, yeah, if I hit it wrong. But and some of them you're just hitting it on top. Like some of these ones, like, what if I break it now? And so my original vision on these things was that it was going to be polished all the way around and blasted. But when I'm carving, I slip and I hit part of that thing. So now I have to redo that border. So I ended up just taking all the polish off and just leaving it natural, and then painting the letters because I hadn't painted them before, because it was going to be, it would have been dark, and it looks much better this way. It looks, you don't really need any polish on it. So everything, and just like I talked about technique and some of the bowls I do, I try to figure things out as I go. And even when I was doing the owls that were, everybody see the owls that were here before and they're in the window? So some of those things, and I thank Nancy for helping me with those, because she came over and I was teaching her how to use the hole saws and all that, and she was making these ghosts, and I go, hey, Taste the Arts is coming up, or Taste the Arts, I always get it wrong, is coming up, and I need small things to sell. So I have all these core drills, like things. So I start drawing. I'm going, hey, I can make owls, and so now I've made 30 owls or something like that.
His own personal flock, which has been distributed.
and I've sold, more than half of them. So
so I will share. So taste of the art, taste of art.
Taste of Art.
I'm sorry, I mess it up.
There's no right. Just Taste the Art.
Taste.
There's no the.
Okay, Taste the Arts.
No of, yeah.
Mark sets out 10 of these little owls, and they're all just sitting on a shelf. And a little girl runs up and she goes, "Oh my gosh, I need them all!" And it's the most wonderful thing. I just love it. So yeah, and so. And
that's why I let people go, can I touch your art? Yeah, touch it. I mean, you can get it dirty, but it'll wash off. If you break it, then that's another thing. I'll just grind it off and make it better. Mm-hmm.
What kind of art are you drawn to?
A lot of different things. Now, Ben back there, he's
Ben. Yeah.
Ben's an artist. He's done things at the zoo in Fresno and all that, and he does wonderful stuff. He makes these shrunken heads things. So his art is really, I like this, and I like really colorful things, and I see things, and the fish comes from seeing somebody else's clay that are kind of like that, but then I just take my own bead on it. So I look at things, and even some of these tikis start out looking at inspirations from other people's tikis, and there's only so many tikis you could do, so I just get inspiration and then I just change it. So that's all colorful and crazy things I really like.
But you don't like colorful tikis?
No, I don't like painted tikis. And that's another thing is when you're carving stone, it's not like when you're drawing or painting. You have to make the texture and the depth and all that to make it look like it's alive, So if you get away with painting wood and stuff, you can't get away with. And I painted a couple, and I'm not really proud of them.
Like I'm looking back there.
Do I have one?
You have some painted turtles.
Oh,
on the
there's
mower.
painted turtles. Well, that's an accent. So it's not, that's painted on, not part of them. They're tattoos,
Okay, dear. That sounds great.
stone tattoos.
Okay.
What's the attraction to the tiki?
You don't like them?
Why do you
So did you?
I thought we were supposed to ask questions.
Yes, you are. When I tell you, you could. No. That's what you signed up for. So I don't know if you noticed that there's a tiki head in the room my dad did. So he did a series of chainsaw tikis, and most of them have just rotted away. I have one that's like rotted mostly away, but it's up in my shop. So I just was always drawn to tikis and the the different vibe and things and Disneyland with the tiki room. I used to have the phone would ring. It would be the tiki room, and
Got your shirt.
I got my
Yeah.
shirt.
Yeah.
So it's just there's no real story. It's just that I just like them.
I think that probably Mark has an ability to see things in a multitude of things. He not only sees things, he'll remember it. I'm the kind of person who can see a thing, but I won't remember anything else. And when we used to go to Disneyland a lot, Mark would walk in the front gate and, a throng of people are ahead of you, chaos all around, and Mark would say, oh, they painted that lamppost since last we were here. Those are different flowers. And I'm just thinking, dear God, get me out of the crowd, right? He remembers all of those things. And the same thing happens for those of you, how many of you by hand have been to his studio? Yeah, enough to know when you get to Mark's studio, it's sort of like this. There's just everything is all in front of you, and you can look at it 10 different times and come away remembering 10 different things. But he'll be able to list out, oh, here's everything, and here's where it sits. And it's that capacity to keep the visual in his brain and in working knowledge just still amazes me, because I'm like, I know that it's over there somewhere.
No.
Kristen.
I did a caricature of a close friend of mine that had cancer and that was dying, and then so I made it of him in caricature, and then there was a musical note on the back because he was a harmonica player and a singer, but he was also a shot putter and a thrower. So I put a handle on it and hung a shot put on it, and I sent it to him, and basically they used that as his monument, kind of. So that's the only one that I tried to get looking like somebody in granite, because when I do faces and stuff, I like to start with the eyes and work my way out and thing, and I do that somewhat with the tikis. I start with the tikis. Sometimes in the past I've just started carving tikis. Now I kind of draw out what I want, but if you notice my stuff, things aren't even, they're more natural, I guess. I try to draw a center line and stuff. Sometimes I don't, and sometimes I go over. But it's just my work. That's it. So I was young then, so I wasn't thinking about the cultural scene. I saw it and all that, but I wasn't part of it. I didn't go out to shows much, or I didn't. If you weren't in my high school, I didn't really know you. Here I've tried to implant myself more into the art scene. So and yes, one of the first things I remember when I came here was the couch show, the whatever it was, sofa art. Yeah. So I remember that. And I always wanted to do that, and I never did it. And I had it in my mind that I wanted to make a sofa out of granite, and then put in like California different things like bears and stuff like that in the thing. But I just never did it. I always had ideas, but sometimes they just never came to fruition. So most of my stone came from where I worked. So people make mistakes. So some of it get broken, some of it gets mislettered. I Some of it gets pulled out of the cemetery if it's broken or something like that. I have a few of those, but so I'm a big recycler. So like this guy, this green red goddess right there, it was a broken piece. You can see the broken pane. So that was a 48-inch piece that one of my coworkers knocked over and broke it into like 4 or 5 pieces. And I've knocked things over. I once was carrying 2 stones out in a wagon, and the door came down and hit me in the head, and I broke both of these finished stones. So it happens. So that's why I have a lot of and there is a we so there's so many stones there that we've been using them as pavers too. So when we all move out of there and all that, and there'll be an article in the paper, if there isn't a paper anymore, that they found all these headstones, buried. So
They do make really handy.
because that has happened a couple places, and I've seen that, and it happened in Exeter at one time where the guy that I didn't know that worked there, they would just take home their thing and just turn them upside down, and they're paper. They're perfectly good paper. They're 3 inches,
We're going to cause a heart attack for somebody.
Even before I started carving, we'd go out and pick up stones where we could find them. I thought we were stealing, but she said, "No, it's fine. You just hop the fence." Yeah.
No, we did not. We did not take stones from a national park. Stones from private property.
So, like the petrified wood, I bought outside at an Indian. What do you call those?
Petrified wood store.
Okay, that's not really what they call them, but so I bought pieces of that there because they sell it for like $2 a pound. Mm-hmm. So I picked up, we've gone by there twice, and so I got a couple more pieces that I'm going to do, and then I split that in half, and so that was half of it, and then I sold the other half to another customer. And then we've been going up to Washington because we have friends there and also family up there. And so when we went to Bellingham, the 2 bulls in there come from Washington. So a lot of I bought before COVID started. I saw this ad in the paper for boulders from 3 Rivers. So I bought a 30-ton truckload for under $500 delivered. And so now they're out in front of the house next door because we have the house next door and a bunch of other places. But I will go and pull off and make a stone, but they're almost all the same color. They're not a lot of variety. So I'm looking to get color, get more variety. So the ones in Washington, and then I bought these green stones that I have yet to carve yet. So I'm looking forward to that. So I'm always looking for more stone at the detriment of my marriage.
So long ago and far away, I was going to retire from work, and I said, I want to leave the area. I want to move away. And he said, okay, well, as soon as I carve up all my stones. And here we are. I didn't quite understand. So he said he did buy a truckload of 30 tons of stone. And nothing in my experience as an adult woman living in the Central Valley prepared me for how much stone is 30 tons. It's some stone. But speaking of stone, and I wanted to make sure I brought up this point, you have stone at home, like, I don't know the technical term, but tons and tons and tons. But you have other art supplies as well. Talk to me about the comfort of having massive quantities of art supplies.
Yeah.
Is that a good way to put it?
Well, it's about security, kind of. It's about comfort. It's about, what if I mess that piece up? I only have one of those pieces. So if you have a lot of them, you could experiment. So I do have a couple special stones. I have one limestone that I got from my friend when we went to South Dakota. The problem, and he couldn't use it anymore because he died when we were there. So, but he was a very good sculptor, and that painting of the Phantom. He wanted it, and I said, well, I'll put it in my will, but he died before me, so he's not getting it because I don't think his wife wants it. So
Thank
anyway,
you for clarifying
this
that.
is a really sad story, so I don't know if we should talk about it. But he bought this big shop, $1 million shop. He'd always want, so he got all these carvers to come here. He set up all kinds of airlines. And that morning, his heart blew apart. And you know, it's like we had to, and so I carved a couple pieces. We auctioned them off at night and gave all that money to the family and stuff like that. So and he was a nationally known sculptor and you know, a mentor and a good friend. So, you know, so where were we?
Thank you for introducing
I'm
that.
sorry.
That's okay. All right. So here's one. So this man's name was Scott, and Scott built this perfect building, and it was perfect. And he had, what, 20 sculptors there from all around the country. And so he achieved his purpose and what he wanted. You, if you had your art to do over again, what would you change?
I'd start stone carving earlier.
And would you stick with granite, do you think? Or?
Yeah, I probably would have got into a sculpture area. So my dad's family was from Minnesota. He was the youngest of 9 kids, and most of everybody before him, they were all stone cutters. They were all in the monument business, and even his dad sold monuments and all that. And they actually came from Minnesota when he was 6 months old and went to Raymond because there's a quarry, and the quarry's still there, and that's where the stones for that came from. The bridge project was ordered through them. They came from a place called Academy, which is above Fresno, and then they were made there. So anyway, he was there, and so I learned that at my dad's funeral from my uncle that was slightly older than him. So I got back into carving. And he'd always talked about the stone and all that. He'd brought me home a piece from the old Oaken High, a piece of sandstone column, and we put it in the front yard, and it's still there at my family home, but at least I think it is, because you couldn't move it, and I didn't have the tools to carve it. So I didn't, taking a little chisel and thing to do it didn't appeal to me at the time. So I wish I'd learned about carving earlier. Even so, people, how do you start? Well, you just do it. If you go out, start collecting. So like I was saying, so I had 6 canvases for 30 years. So the dog is the first time I used one right there, the Bentley there. So I now have more. So now so getting ready to this show, and I painted the 2 things behind the Vikings, and I'm going, well, I need to paint more too, and so I want to do that. So I think everybody should just do something, and a lot of people just doodle. Well, turn your doodle into art. Okay. So I threw hammer in college. I made All-American in Division III twice. So then I threw in the Highland Games, and I threw that kind of hammer. And I threw caber. So we met in the Highland Games. So she got interested in the Highland Games, and I think it was because she saw me at one of them.
I'm sure that was it.
Because
and I had cake.
I was pretty irresistible in my kill. So I didn't get married until I was 44. And so I lived with my brother, and he didn't get married until he was a little younger than me when he got married. So we're not going to go into that story. But if you know, you know. We
had to have something to do.
So we had something to do. So he was working, he was a machinist and all that, and I was doing T-shirts and art. So we went to a brew pub, and it was just like around 83, 84 when brew pubs first started. Then you could start making your own beer. So he wanted to make his own beer. So he very good at making beer. So he actually won the best of show at the state fair twice in the early 90s. So he would name his things Rhino. So originally we used to do a Cajun feast at our house in the summer, and people would come to that. And so then he'd start brewing beer for it, and then that morphed into the Rhino party. So we had a Rhino Christmas party and a thing. So that went into the Rhino games, where we had Highland games, and then we'd have a party. So it's just about having fun. And then we continued the Rhino games when I moved here, but we just didn't have any beer, and we had it in our backyard. And then in 2009, we got really tired of cleaning for 15 months before each thing, and then having all my friends. And I, at the time, ran most of the games, and I was a president of an association that ran the games, and that.
So Mark would make aprons and T-shirts and all of those things, those graphics. He printed all number of things.
So yeah, so these are basically showing you what I did when I did T-shirts. So I most of the time it was before computers, or before the thing. So if I wanted lettering and all that, I'd either have to use that rub-on lettering or hand draw it. So I'd have to, and then so you'd have to put different things together. So I wanted to show you that, and like on this one over here where it's colorful, that's a 4-color process. But it's all hand separated. It's not doing a computer. So I had to figure out what halftones and stuff that I had to put on behind each other to make different colors. So those are things that I was really proud of, and people noticed. So because we weren't a really big company, we had all hand presses. We did a lot. We did work for Gallo. We did 1,000 shirts in one night, for Night Train wine. If you know that, it's a mean wine. So
if you know, you know.
It's a line from the Blues Brothers. So so living with my brother, we had fun, and we did things, and I used to make Christmas gifts for everybody. So I made wooden, I don't know,
ornaments, all manner of things.
Yeah, and so I've been into art all my life. So.
My last question for you is: so here's your retrospective. What's next?
Another one in 70 years?
I'll be here.
Because I have a lot of ideas. So I wanted all these fish here, and going all the way up with real big ones here, and with seaweed behind it and all that. So there's things like that in my mind. So I need to get them out. And there's paintings I want to do. Just do it. That's it. That's what we're going to do.
So in your world of art, what's your next thing? What do you want to pick up and go, oh, I want to do more metal or more? I'm going to do video production or performance art, interpretive dance.
So I've always been interested in pounding on metal. And in 2006, before I went to Georgia, I was thinking about doing blacksmithing. I went to a conference and all that, and then, but granite won out because I had granite, and so it was fun when I'd been looking at this piece, doing my laps around the pasture, the piece of stone. I go, I know I want to put a dragonfly on that and all that. So I pulled it in, and so a couple of weeks ago I started, and I had cut out some dragonflies with my new plasma cutter, which looking forward, now that the bridge project is over, is to use it some more. So I was going to just put it on there flat, right, and glue it on there and carve it. And then I'm going, no, I want some shape to it. So I heated it up with my torch, and I just started pounding on it, and I kind of like it. So I need to do more of that.
Why, thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you. Thanks for all coming.
Thank you.